July 3, 1863. The acrid smell of gunpowder hung over the fields of Gettysburg as General Robert E. Lee prepared a confidential record of the battle. Yet the most revealing secrets are frequently located in silence, in the crucial facts his account intentionally leaves out. This is a tale of Gettysburg you have not been told, a story concealed within the lines of an official report. It uncovers a desperate final risk its author would never publicly admit, and reveals the genuine, sorrowful causes for the collapse of Pickett's charge. Remain with us until the conclusion, and we assure you will henceforth perceive this decisive moment from an altered perspective. But before we start, please like this video and subscribe to our channel immediately to help preserve history. Months afterward, on January 20th, 1864, from his headquarters, Lee finally sent his formal report to General Cooper in Richmond. With administrative tranquility, he presented his record of the Army's campaigns in Maryland and Pennsylvania, attaching the reports of his subordinates as they were received. He mentioned the unavoidable holdup in casualty returns and the unfinished nature of the medical director's report, declaring that precise figures could only be verified via each commander's formal documents. He added maps of the Army's marches, but noted that the comprehensive map of the Gettysburg battlefield would be sent subsequently, a subtle indication of the event's complexity and sensitivity. Lee's narrative starts with the Army's march into Pennsylvania. Hill's corps advanced toward Cashtown on June 29th, followed by Longstreet. Ewell's corps was commanded to return to the main army from Carlisle. The original plan was not a full-scale battle, and the Army was ignorant of the Union's swift approach. On June 30th, General Pettigrew, dispatched by General Heth to collect provisions in Gettysburg, found the town was already held by Federal cavalry. Pettigrew prudently retreated without a fight, informing his superiors of his discovery. At sunrise on July 1st, Hill moved forward to ascertain the enemy's size, thinking it to be merely a cavalry screen. Heth's division encountered Union scouts and drove them back until meeting powerful opposition from a concealed infantry force. Two of Heth's brigades, significantly outmatched, were compelled into a combative withdrawal, with Brigadier General Archer taken prisoner during the fighting. As General Pender's division came up to reinforce them, Hill commanded a general advance. The battle erupted in ferocity. Heth's men, now supported, forced the enemy back through the town. The opportune arrival of Ewell's corps in the afternoon shifted the momentum as a synchronized attack shattered the Union lines, sending them fleeing in confusion through the streets of Gettysburg with heavy losses, including the death of Union General Reynolds. Thousands of prisoners were captured, but the Union Army did not run, instead regrouping on a powerful defensive location on the high ground south of town, Cemetery Hill and Culp's Hill. Lee now confronted a pivotal choice, with his forces triumphant but disorganized from the fierce combat. He immediately ordered Ewell to try to seize the strategic hill if practicable, a phrase that would become notorious for the leeway it provided. Ewell, cautious by temperament and still expecting the arrival of his entire division, assessed the reinforced Federal positions and decided an attack was too hazardous without additional troops. This instant of hesitation proved lethal to the Confederate initiative. By the time full darkness arrived, Union engineers had converted the heights into a fortified stronghold, and the golden chance to crush the Army of the Potomac on the first day was permanently gone. Lee now assessed a precarious predicament. A withdrawal through the mountain passes with his lengthy supply trains would be perilously susceptible to attack. Yet staying motionless in place presented its own dangers, as the surrounding land could not sustain the army for long, and the enemy held the strategic advantage. Confident from the day's victory and trusting in the superior combat spirit of his men, Lee made the bold decision to assault the reinforced Union line on July 2nd. His strategy was intricate and depended on perfect timing across a broad front. Longstreet's First Corps was to deliver the main blow against the Union left flank, intending to roll up the enemy line from south to north. At the same time, Ewell's Second Corps was to launch a strong demonstration against the Union right on Culp's Hill, occupying those forces and stopping them from reinforcing the left. Hill's Third Corps would maintain pressure on the Union center, creating a multi-front emergency that would overwhelm General Meade's capacity to react. The execution of this plan began to stumble from the beginning. Longstreet, dissatisfied with the tactic, postponed his advance for hours, advocating for a different tactical maneuver and waiting for the arrival of his final brigade. This delay granted the Union forces invaluable time to strengthen their positions on the left, most importantly, on a rocky wooded hill called Little Round Top, which had been left almost undefended. When Longstreet's attack finally began in the late afternoon, it was violent and brutal. Hood's division on the far right engaged in a savage contest for Devil's Den and the slopes of Little Round Top. McLaws' division pushed forward through the peach orchard and the wheat field, creating a chaotic, fierce struggle that consumed brigades on both sides. Wright's brigade of Anderson's division even managed to temporarily break through the Union center on Cemetery Ridge, a glimpse of what could have been accomplished with better coordination. On the left, Ewell's demonstration began too late to be completely effective. General Johnson's division engaged in a prolonged and expensive battle for the trenches on Culp's Hill, but early supporting assaults lacked enough force. The day's fighting was marked by incredible Confederate courage and localized penetrations, but a critical lack of synchronization meant these victories were isolated. The Union Army, benefiting from interior lines, efficiently moved its reserves from quiet sectors to each point of danger, parrying every Confederate thrust. The sun set on a field covered with casualties and no decisive penetration achieved. Despite the reversals, Lee interpreted the partial victories on the right as proof that the Union center had been weakened. He resolved to recommit on July 3rd with an even bolder plan, a massive, concentrated infantry charge directly against the center of the Union line on Cemetery Ridge. Longstreet, now strengthened with Pickett's fresh division, which had arrived the previous night, would lead the attack. The plan required an unprecedented artillery barrage from over 150 guns to neutralize the Union batteries and weaken the infantry positions. At approximately 1 p.m., the Confederate cannonade started, one of the largest artillery bombardments ever witnessed on the continent. However, its impact was limited. Many Confederate shells flew over the ridge's crest, exploding harmlessly in the rear areas. Critically, after nearly 2 hours of firing, the Confederate artillery started to run short on ammunition. As the Confederate fire diminished, a misleading quiet settled over the field. Then the order was issued. Between 12,000 and 15,000 Confederate infantrymen from Pickett's, Pettigrew's, and Trimble's commands emerged from the woods on Cemetery Ridge and formed into a line nearly a mile wide. It was a spectacle of military pride and order. They marched across nearly 3/4 of a mile of open ground, under a blazing sun and increasingly intense artillery fire. As they narrowed the distance, the Union artillery, which had preserved its ammunition, reopened with a devastating intensity, tearing the Confederate ranks apart with solid shot and shell. Then, as the Confederates came within rifle range, volleys of musket fire burst from behind the stone wall on the ridge. The assault started to crumble under the hail of lead and iron. For a few brief moments, it seemed the pure force of determination might succeed. A spearhead of Virginians, led by General Lewis Armistead, penetrated the stone wall at the angle, the climactic moment known as the high-water mark of the Confederacy. They battled hand to hand, overrunning a Union battery, but they were isolated. The supporting units had been destroyed or repelled. The legendary charge broke into a bloody, disordered retreat across the fields. The cost was beyond comprehension. Pickett's division was virtually annihilated, all 3 of his brigade commanders becoming casualties in the storm. The failure was not just one of courage, but of structure. The absence of Stuart's cavalry had left Lee sightless. The preliminary artillery bombardment had utterly failed to weaken the target, and the charge itself progressed without any coordinated support on its flanks. Lee's official dispatch, written months later, carefully itemizes troop movements but tactically omits these profound command and logistical failures. The true hidden story of Gettysburg resides in these omissions, in the lingering "what if?" questions that forever hover over the battlefield, contesting simple tales of destiny and exposing the fragile boundary between victory and disaster.